Hi, the world is their classroom. Great to be with you today. Thank you so much for having me on my blog tour for Vampirates. Now, you've asked me to have a think about my 5 favourite characters within the sequence. Now, that's quite difficult to start with because there are so many characters in Vampirates, and of course, to me, they all feel like my kids, so I'm in a bit of a dilemma choosing my top 5. But look, you've set that challenge, so I'm going to do my best. And the first character I'm choosing is Cheng Li. She is 17 years old when we first meet her, but of course she's also already deputy captain of the Diablo, one of the most notorious pirate ships. Cheng Li has graduated with flying colours from the Pirate Academy, and she's part of the vanguard of piracy and a great hope for the Pirate Federation. She's also, of course, the character who rescues Connor from drowning, and they form this interesting but kind of unpredictable friendship that's going to last throughout the sequence. Now, Cheng Li's pretty ambitious at the start of the story, but she's also a little bit narrow-minded, I think, and brutal. She's always brutal. And she tells Connor that he has to forget that Grace might have survived the shipwreck and that there could even be this ship of vampire pirates or vampirates. But Cheng Li is going to go on this amazing journey through the course of the books. And I love the fact that later on in the story, when she has her own ship to captain, the Tiger, that not only is she accepting that the Vampirates do exist, but she's actually entered into a groundbreaking alliance with them. And in fact, one of my favourite scenes in the sequence as a whole is when Lorcan Furey, the vampirate, comes to visit Cheng Li on board the Tiger, and they forge that alliance. My next favourite character is another pirate. It's Bart Pierce, who again we meet very early on in the story. He is a 23-year-old pirate on board the Diablo who becomes Connor's best friend and confidant. Now, there's so much I like about Bart. He's really rough around the edges. He's a realist. So at 23, he's been on board Captain Malacco Wraith's ship for the best part of 10 years. And he already feels like his life is meaningful. And he knows that his life could end at any moment because he's bought into this notion of a pirate's life being a short life, but a merry one. And he fully expects that he'll be dead by the age of 30. Well, we'll see if that happens. Within the story of Vampirates, there are a lot of characters that you may feel you can't trust or you're just not sure about, including Cheng Li. And in that way, I think that as a reader, your journey through the sequence is quite like Connor and Grace's. But one of the things I love about Bart is you can absolutely always trust him from the beginning of the story to the end of the story. When people are in trouble that he cares about, he will go and help them wherever he is and wherever he has to get to. Stukely, or Jez Stukely, is possibly my number 1 favourite character in the Vampirate sequence, which is kind of funny to me because originally I designed him to appear in the first 3 chapters of Tide of Terror and then die, because I was trying to show that the brutality within the world of pirates and vampires had risen, there was more jeopardy, and his death was going to symbolise that. But as a character, Jez Stukely simply refused to die. He has an elaborate pirate funeral. His coffin is thrown into the ocean, but it doesn't sink, of course. It lands at Sidorio's feet, and Sidorio sires Stukely to become his deputy. Now, Stukely originally comes from Manchester, and I love his sharp Mancunian wit. I really enjoy him as a double act, initially with Sidorio and then latterly with Johnny Desperado. But I think the thing I like most of all about Jez Stukely is this way that he's torn between his pirate past and his vampire present, and that impetus between him to do good things and then being pulled back to doing bad. He's someone who can be incredibly funny one moment and then incredibly brutal the next. Lady Lola Elizabeth Mercy Lockwood is my next favourite character, and you'll see I've given her full title. Of course, she's also known as Blackheart, and that's the name of the book in which she makes her first appearance. And one of the first things we see Lola do is storm onto the Typhon and steal Trophy Wraith's golden hand, and that's just a small indication of the kind of character that Lady Lola is. Of course, she has her ship, the Vagabond. She has her winery, the Blackheart Winery, on board, but the bottles are not filled with wine. They're filled with another dark substance. Lady Lola is an incredibly fun character to write. She comes from very aristocratic beginnings. There's a new bonus crossing story at the back of the new edition of Blackheart, which will tell you a little bit more about where she came from, which I hope you will enjoy reading. I have many favourite scenes in the books involving Lola, including her ridiculously over-the-top wedding to Sidorio, where she is still holding Trophy Wraith's golden hand as an alternative wedding bouquet. And I also love the scene at the beginning of Immortal War, where although Lola is 8.5 months pregnant, she can't help but being at the forefront of an attack on a pirate ship. Now, I was asked to choose my 5 favourite characters, but I'm going to be a little bit naughty and I'm going to squeeze 2 into my final choice, because I really can't choose between Grace and Connor Tempest. I said right at the beginning that my characters are kind of like my children, and I feel more attached and more responsible for Connor and Grace than any of the other characters. I really enjoy the way that they develop through the 6 books in this sequence, which actually only take place over a year of their lives. I think initially I saw Connor and Grace very much because they're twins, as 2 sides of the same coin. But actually once they're separated and they go on their very different but parallel journeys, Connor into the world of piracy and Grace into the realm of vampirates, their experiences shape them so much and they change their mindsets and their view of the world. And of course that becomes incredibly difficult for their own relationship. But I think it was very important to me as I was coming to writing the end of this sequence that I was able to bring Connor and Grace back into some degree of comfort with one another. So there you have it. Those are my 5 or maybe 6 favourite characters from the Vampirates sequence. But look, now I want to know, who are your favourite characters? So I hope you enjoyed the books in these wonderful new editions, and thanks again for having me on my Vampirates blog tour.